The warning arrived like a whisper of doom across the Galactic Council. A voice, trembling with fear and exhaustion, carried through the interstellar relay. Do not attack the humans. They will hunt you forever. It was not a threat, it was a prophecy. The alien emissary delivering it had survived the encounter barely, its fleet reduced to drifting wreckage. Its species was gone, obliterated in a single, brilliant act of human cunning centuries ago. And now, it begged the Council to listen. The Council, composed of ancient species that measured their existence in millennia, scoffed. Their chambers glittered with opulent symbols of authority, crystalline thrones, pulsating energy cores, and banners of conquest that stretched across the ceiling. 1,000 years of dominance had bred arrogance, and arrogance made the Council blind. Humans? A primitive, bipedal species. Fragile. Emotional. Their technology barely scratched interstellar standards. They were insects, amusing and expendable. The debate was predictably dismissive. Exaggeration, murmured High Chancellor Torkal of the Xylar Dominion, its multiple eyes narrowing. They fight poorly. Their fleets are slow, their weapons outdated. Let them come. It will amuse us. Another counselor, a serpentine diplomat from the Lutheri Collective, hissed in agreement. Curiosity does not a threat make. They lack coordination, strategy, the patience required to survive a galactic war. The emissary's voice cracked. You do not understand. They study. They adapt. They learn. And when they strike, you will not know mercy. Laughter rippled through the chamber, polished and patronizing. The Council had heard warnings before. Species had warned them, begged them to reconsider, and ultimately perished while the Council debated. This, they believed, was no different. Weeks later, humanity arrived. The first human vessel, a sleek, unassuming craft named the USS Perseverance, drifted into the outer rim of Council space. It bore no flags of war, no threatening formation, only the hum of engines and the quiet confidence of a species that knew its value. The Council responded with protocol, a ceremonial volley of plasma cannons, meant to intimidate and test. They expected panic, confusion, or at the very least, surrender. What they received instead was laughter. It came over the comms, guttural and human, impossible to fully translate. Aliens reported that the sound made their auditory system seize. Then the humans acted. The Perseverance reversed engines in a maneuver no alien ship had ever executed, its trajectory slicing between incoming fire with uncanny precision. Then came the first human weapon that truly terrified the Council, a gravity torpedo. It did not explode in the conventional sense. It bent space, shredded shields, and sent fleets tumbling into each other like pins in a cosmic game. The flagship of the Xylar Dominion erupted in a symphony of fire and metal. The Council's confidence cracked. Panic spread like wildfire. Orders collided, fleets scattered, and centuries of bureaucratic supremacy unraveled in hours. The emissary's warning, once dismissed, now echoed through the Council chambers with newfound clarity. They will hunt you forever. But the humans were just beginning. By the second week, the outer rim was aflame. Entire scouting fleets disappeared without a trace. Alien commanders reported strange patterns. The humans didn't just fight, they predicted, anticipated, exploited. They adapted tactics mid-battle, turning alien strategies against their creators. In one encounter, the Xylar fleet tried a pincer maneuver, only to find the humans had anticipated the angle, reversed, and struck at the fleet's core instead. Ships imploded in seconds, debris scattered across light years. Admiral Kthor of the Xylar Dominion watched helplessly from the bridge of his flagship. How do they know? He roared into his communicator, his voice bouncing uselessly off the console. Our formations, our strategies, our technology. They shouldn't. Our psyops, our war doctrines. No species could react this fast. The answer was simple, delivered calmly by a human officer over the comms. We're curious creatures, Admiral. You made a lot of mistakes. We correct them, permanently. Reports flooded in from every sector. The humans didn't negotiate. They didn't retreat. They learned alien languages in hours, mimicked alien behavior, and then used it to terrify, confuse, and annihilate. Alien warlords, notorious for cruelty and cunning, were captured alive only to witness their empires collapse piece by piece. The humans' methods were theatrical. On the planet Vrak, the infamous warlord Jakath had executed billions across a dozen worlds. His cruelty was legendary, his arrogance unquestioned. Humans cornered him, not with immediate destruction, but with a display of patience that unnerved even the most battle-hardened officers. Cities fell one by one, each strike precise, each broadcasted across the planet's communication channels. Jakath's screams echoed for days, until he was forced to surrender, humiliated, and utterly powerless. A single human soldier delivered the final message with a calm, chilling smile. "We warned you." The galaxy began to notice the pattern. Humans didn't just fight, they observed, learned, adapted, and then executed with terrifying creativity. No species could predict their next move. No council doctrine could anticipate their strategies. And yet, they never lost a single human life unnecessarily. Every casualty was deliberate, every victory calculated, every psychological blow a message: do not underestimate us. By the end of the first month, rumors circulated among alien fleets. Entire systems had been wiped clean, yet not a single human ship was lost. Ships reported strange sightings, human vessels appearing where no one expected, vanishing before they could retaliate, and leaving no debris, only fear. High Chancellor Torkal, once smug and dismissive, now stared at the console in disbelief. "We misjudged them," he admitted, his multiple eyes reflecting pale blue panic. "Every maneuver, every tactic, they adapt instantly. We are outmatched." But it wasn't arrogance anymore. It was terror. Pure, unfiltered, existential terror. The humans had arrived not as conquerors, not as diplomats, but as predators. And the Council, drunk on centuries of power, had painted a target on themselves. And through it all, the voice of the alien emissary haunted the halls of the Council. "They will hunt you forever." The humans weren't finished. The hunt had only begun. The galaxy quickly learned that humans did not fight like anyone else. They didn't charge blindly into battle. They didn't send fleets in straight lines or hurl weapons with predictable arcs. Humans studied. They adapted. They anticipated. And then they hunted. By the third week, the outer rim was silent, except for the hum of human engines. Alien fleets, once confident, found themselves walking into ambushes they couldn't comprehend. The Xylar Dominion's most elite strike force vanished in a single night, swallowed by black space maneuvers that defied conventional physics. No distress signals. No debris. Just gone. Admiral Kthor of the Xylar Dominion, once proud of his tactical genius, was reduced to a trembling specter in his flagship's command bridge. "How do they know?" he bellowed, his voice cracking with fear and rage. "Our formations, our battle codes, our entire war doctrine, how do they know it before we execute it?" The humans answered over comms, calm, almost polite. "We're curious creatures, Admiral. We watch, we learn, and we correct mistakes." Yours were plentiful. Every alien species reported the same thing: the humans were surgical in their destruction. But the terror wasn't in the firepower, it was in the strategy. Entire warlords' fleets were neutralized without a single human casualty. Not by overwhelming numbers, but by understanding the enemy's mind. Alien generals who had slaughtered billions suddenly found themselves cornered by tactics they couldn't predict. Panic spread faster than lasers. On the planet Vrak, humans cornered the notorious warlord Jakath, infamous for his mass executions and brutal conquests. Humans didn't simply attack. They orchestrated a campaign that psychologically dismantled him. Cities fell one by one, not destroyed outright but manipulated into chaos, broadcasting fear across the planet. Jakath's own soldiers abandoned him, confused and terrified. By the time humans entered the capital, the warlord was alone, humiliated, and powerless. A single human officer delivered the final message with a calm smile. "We warned you." Meanwhile, alien commanders began whispering of a terrifying pattern. Humans didn't just kill, they studied the consequences of every choice. They understood alien minds, predicting reactions hours or days before they happened. They exploited arrogance, impatience, fear, and pride. Entire fleets reported losing their cohesion simply because humans anticipated their panic and weaponized it. The Xylar Dominion attempted a coordinated counterstrike. Tens of thousands of ships formed a massive offensive, hoping to overwhelm the human vessels with sheer numbers. But humans didn't engage head-on. Instead, they split into swarms, moving unpredictably, exploiting weak points in shield geometry, communication delays, and psychological triggers. Within hours, half the fleet was destroyed, and the rest were trapped in gravity loops, unable to maneuver. Even when captured, alien leaders learned the same lesson. Humans were not only tactical geniuses, they had a sense of dark humor. High-ranking officers found their war logs hacked, rewritten with satirical commentary, their private messages broadcast for all enemies to hear. Entire species found themselves victims of the humans' cruelly precise mockery, a psychological blow that left them second-guessing every decision. The galaxy began calling it the human hunt. And humans didn't just hunt, they toyed with their prey. The Council's weapon factories, stockpiles, and communication hubs were neutralized one by one, each strike executed to maximize humiliation as well as destruction. Alien warlords began surrendering without battle, hoping mercy would temper the humans' wrath, only to learn that mercy, in human terms, was another lesson. Reports surfaced from the Lutheri Collective. A fleet of 20,000 vessels had vanished overnight. Not destroyed, not obliterated, but trapped in a web of gravitational distortions created by a single human ship. Weeks later, the fleet reappeared in a different sector, ships intact but crews reporting extreme psychological stress, memory gaps, and an instinctive fear of humans that could not be explained. The humans had taught them to fear, not death, not pain, but inevitability. Even the Council began to fracture under the weight of human ingenuity. High Chancellor Torkal, who had once dismissed the species as insects, now issued orders in whispers, too afraid to broadcast them. His advisors debated retreat, diplomacy, and surrender, but every move the Council made was anticipated and turned to their disadvantage. In one infamous incident, the humans intercepted a convoy carrying alien diplomats meant to negotiate ceasefires. Rather than destroy them outright, they redirected the convoy into a labyrinth of asteroid fields, disabling engines and communications. For 3 days, the diplomats were forced to navigate the maze while being taunted over comms by human voices recounting their past atrocities in vivid detail. When they finally emerged, battered and humiliated, a human officer delivered a single line. "We study history. We correct mistakes." By the end of the 3rd week, it was no longer about fleets or planets. It was about control. The humans had established dominance not by conquest, but by forcing every alien species to acknowledge their ingenuity, patience, and capacity for precise, terrifying retribution. They weren't just fighting, they were teaching the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. And yet, there was a subtle elegance to it. Humans didn't indiscriminately slaughter. They were deliberate, methodical, and almost artistically cruel in the way they dismantled entire empires. Aliens spoke in hushed tones about the efficiency of human operations, their uncanny ability to win wars while preserving their own lives. Even as fear gripped the Council, humans maintained a sense of almost playful detachment. On the bridge of the USS Perseverance, Captain Eleanor Vasquez watched reports come in, her officers executing maneuvers with clinical precision. She smiled faintly as she read about yet another fleet vanishing. "They don't learn," she muttered. "They never do." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Chen, raised an eyebrow. "Do you think they'll survive to regret it?" Vasquez exhaled slowly. "They'll survive, all right. But regret? Not a chance. And if they try, we'll remind them." It was true. Across sectors, systems, and fleets, every alien species came to understand the same truth: humans were not to be underestimated. They were not simply clever, or lucky, or aggressive, they were hunters, patient and relentless. Once humans chose a target, there was no escape, no hiding, no hope. By the end of the month, The message had spread. In diplomatic channels, military briefings, and underground comms, aliens whispered the same thing: the humans hunt. And if you're in their path, you will die, and you will understand why. The galaxy had been warned. And yet none had listened. And that was the beginning of the reckoning. The Council had reached the edge of despair. Entire fleets gone. Worlds overrun. Warlords humiliated. Alien species were whispering in terror, afraid even to transmit over long-range channels. The humans had proven time and again that conventional tactics, brute force, and political maneuvering were useless. So the Council did what they had long avoided: they activated Project Omega. It was the ultimate doomsday device, a weapon so powerful that even the name was spoken only in hushed, fearful tones. It could annihilate planets, fleets, and possibly the human species entirely in a single cataclysmic strike. Its creators had imagined no countermeasure. Nothing could survive it. High Chancellor Torkal, eyes wide with grim satisfaction, addressed the Council. At last! One act, one decisive strike, and the humans will be no more. They will crumble, as all species before them. We will reclaim our dignity. We will reclaim control. The Council mobilized the device, directing its destructive power toward human space. Fleets fell into position, planetary shields braced, entire populations evacuated, or so they thought. They expected humans to panic. They expected surrender. They expected death. They expected nothing remotely resembling reality. The humans did not flee. They did not negotiate. They didn't even visibly react. On the bridge of the USS Perseverance, Captain Eleanor Vasquez and her officers monitored the Omega countdown with the calm precision of surgeons observing a beating heart. Lieutenant Chen leaned over her shoulder. "They'll destroy us," he said. His voice carried disbelief and a flicker of fear. Vasquez shrugged, almost bored. "They'll try. But they've forgotten one thing: humans don't just survive, we improvise." When Project Omega fired, a shockwave of annihilation radiated outward. Alien sensors recorded the impossible. The wave split, twisted, and reversed. The Council's own weapon turned inward. Fleet after fleet, flagship after flagship, entire orbital stations, redirected toward their own creators. The Council had unwittingly weaponized themselves. Shouts erupted across alien command decks. Officers screamed incomprehensible orders as Omega struck with surgical precision. Ships disintegrated mid-space, stations vaporized, and cities on Council worlds were obliterated by the Council's own designs. Centuries of preparation, of dominance, of arrogance, all undone in moments by the species they thought they could destroy. Vasquez's voice cut through the chaos over comms, calm and cold. "Next time, read the fine print." The Council's members were trapped in a nightmare of their own making. Their fleets, once instruments of power, became instruments of annihilation aimed at themselves. High Chancellor Torkal's multiple eyes reflected the horror as his command bridge crumbled around him. Generals, admirals, diplomats, none survived the mirrored strike. But humans didn't stop at survival. They studied the aftermath, as always. Every failure, every weakness, every reaction by the Council's forces became part of a larger lesson plan. Ships that had been trapped in Omega's rebound fields were recovered, their systems repaired, their crews interrogated with precision and subtle cruelty. Each surviving officer was given a choice: die quietly, or live to be part of the lesson they'd helped teach. Across the galaxy, alien species who had underestimated humans began to grasp the scope of their capabilities. Humans didn't merely fight, they rewrote the rules of engagement. They turned your weapons against you, your fleets against yourself, and your confidence into panic. Somewhere in the debris-strewn void, Chakath, the warlord from Vrak, watched from a surviving shuttle, speechless. They are monsters," he muttered. His eyes, reflecting fire and chaos, betrayed fear unlike anything he had felt facing thousands of enemies before. "But brilliant! Terrifying! And unstoppable." Even Council advisors who had begged for mercy now realized it was too late. Humanity didn't do mercy the way anyone expected. Their retaliation was precise, calculated, and imbued with a dark, almost humorous sense of irony. Omega had been intended to erase humans from existence. Instead, it had obliterated the Council and rewritten interstellar strategy itself. The galaxy learned a new term in hushed tones: the mirror of humanity. Every species that attacked humans, or even dared to underestimate them, was reminded that humans would find a way to turn their arrogance against them. They didn't just fight back. They hunted. And when necessary, they used your own weapons, your own plans, and your own pride to destroy you from the inside out. In the calm after the storm, Vasquez walked the bridge of the Perseverance, surveying reports of destroyed fleets, vaporized stations, and systems liberated from Council oppression. She lit a cigarette, smoke curling lazily in the zero-gravity air. Chen watched her, silent for a moment. "They won't forget this," he said quietly. Vasquez exhaled, a thin plume of smoke drifting toward the viewport. "Some lessons are unforgettable. But if they do, we'll remind them." Across the stars, remnants of the Council attempted to regroup. Communications flickered. Sectors went dark. Fleet transmissions were fragmented, infested with human code that twisted every attempt at organization into chaos. Humans were patient. They waited. They learned. And when the time came, they struck again, not out of necessity, but out of principle. The galaxy would remember Project Omega, not as a weapon of human destruction, but as the ultimate proof of human ingenuity. Even the Council's most advanced technology had failed. Even centuries of experience and strategy had been reversed in moments. Humans didn't need superior numbers, faster ships, or even alien technology. They needed curiosity, patience, and the relentless drive to survive, and the Council had given them the perfect opportunity to demonstrate it. By the end of the campaign, the humans had rewritten the rules of engagement for the entire galaxy. Every species now understood a chilling truth: attacking humans was not just foolish, it was suicidal. Project Omega, meant to erase them, had become the symbol of their dominance. And in the dark corridors of the surviving Council worlds, whispers carried a single refrain: "Do not attack the humans. They will hunt you forever." The galaxy had been warned. The lesson had been learned in fire, in debris, in horror. But for humans, this was only the beginning. The hunt was far from over. The galaxy went quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that follows a storm so complete it reshapes reality itself. Council worlds drifted in darkness, their fleets shattered, their fleets' pride dissolved into fragments of metal and panic. Alien species whispered of the humans in tones that blended fear, awe, and disbelief. The humans didn't celebrate. They didn't parade their victories. They waited. Always patient, always observing. For humanity, victory was not a moment, it was a process, a lesson delivered with precision. Every ship, every soldier, every human officer understood that their strength was not in overwhelming firepower, but in unpredictability, intelligence, and relentless resolve. On the surface of a scorched moon orbiting a dead Council world, Captain Eleanor Vasquez watched the horizon through a reinforced observation dome. Fires from orbital bombardments painted the sky red, debris from shattered fleets littered the void. Lieutenant Chen stood beside her, silent, eyes scanning the devastation with awe and unease. "Do you think they'll ever learn?" Chen asked, voice low. Vasquez exhaled smoke from her cigarette. "Some lessons, they never forget. And if they do, we'll remind them." The humans had reshaped the galaxy's understanding of warfare. No species had ever seen combat like this: surgical strikes that dismantled entire empires, psychological operations that shattered confidence and morale, and technology wielded not just to destroy but to teach, to warn, to instill fear. And yet, the humans weren't monsters. Not in the conventional sense. They were precise. Calculated. Every casualty, every victory, every terrifying maneuver carried meaning. The galaxy learned that humans were capable of cruelty, but cruelty with purpose. They weren't indiscriminate. They were educators in the school of survival, and the lessons were unforgettable. Across sectors, alien fleets began to regroup. Former enemies whispered treaties, fear driving diplomacy where arrogance once ruled. The remnants of the Council had survived in fragmented systems, but their influence had collapsed. No one wanted to challenge humanity again, not openly, not directly. In one sector, Jakath, the warlord from Vrak, sat alone in the wreckage of his capital. His empire had been reduced to nothing. He had surrendered to humans not out of respect, but out of a dawning realization. The humans were not merely tactical geniuses, they were inevitable. They are monsters, he muttered to himself. But brilliant, terrifying, and unstoppable. Humans, for their part, maintained an almost playful detachment. They did not gloat, not in the way aliens expected. Instead, they executed what they called administrative corrections, restoring systems, reassigning resources, and ensuring no species could rise to threaten them again without paying a calculated price. In the void above the moon, Vasquez's ship, the USS Perseverance, drifted silently. Its crew monitored galactic communications, analyzing alien reactions. Every surviving species had learned the same lesson: humans adapt, humans endure, humans hunt. Once humans set their sights, no strategy, no technology, no arrogance could shield you. Even allies, rare, trusted, and cautious, recognized humanity's singularity. Humans did not wage war for conquest alone. They waged war for survival, for principle, for the insistence that no species could ever underestimate them again. Their reputation, carefully curated across fire and devastation, ensured respect and fear. By the time the Council attempted to regroup, they found themselves navigating a galaxy already rewritten. Key hyperlanes were under human control. Supply chains for fleets that had once threatened humanity were now monitored by human observation nodes. Systems that had once resisted humanity were pacified, not through colonization, but through undeniable deterrence. On a small, burnt-out world that had once housed the Council's greatest strategists, Vasquez stood before a map of the galaxy, dotted with indicators of human presence, observation stations, and patrol routes. She turned to Chin. "We didn't just win," she said. "We taught them. And now, we wait." Chin nodded, understanding. Victory, in the human way, was not the end of a fight. It was a statement. A reminder. A living lesson in the cost of underestimating a species capable of both brilliance and cruelty. Meanwhile, whispers spread among alien species about the humans' dark humor. War logs hacked, communications intercepted, and psychological operations broadcast across sectors had left many leaders wary, paranoid, and exhausted. Humans had turned arrogance into vulnerability, pride into terror, and fear into education. Yet there was an elegance to their victory. Humanity didn't annihilate for the sake of dominance. They dismantled, corrected, and left a path for survival for those who understood the rules. Their message was clear: respect, caution, and intelligence were required when dealing with humans, or else you would be reminded of your failures in the most terrifying ways imaginable. In the quiet aftermath, Vasquez recorded a log entry, her voice steady, precise, with just a trace of dark humor. Project Omega failed to destroy us. It failed spectacularly. But we learned from it, adapted, and turned it against those who believed they were untouchable. Let this serve as a reminder to all who might challenge humanity: you do not negotiate with the humans. You do not outsmart us. And you certainly do not underestimate us. We endure. We adapt. We hunt. Forever. The galaxy would whisper about this moment for millennia. About the species that turned catastrophe into opportunity, arrogance into teaching, and survival into legend. About humans who could dismantle fleets, humiliate warlords, and rewrite the rules of interstellar war, all while maintaining a calm, almost humorous detachment. And across sectors, systems, and fleets, one truth echoed louder than any weapon's roar: humans don't just fight. Humans hunt. Humans endure. And once you are on their radar, you never escape. In the stars above the ruined Council worlds, the Perseverance drifted silently, observing, waiting, and reminding the galaxy of a simple, terrifying fact: humans were the ultimate predators, not of species, but of arrogance. And the hunt had only just begun. The end.